As I'm recording this, should probably be Gods of the First Generation Part 3. If you guys are, I guess, a little new, I have my other Pokemon tier histories going over past, like, good Pokemon, I guess. And I want to start off with the first generation, and I've come up with a four-part series of what I call the four gods of the first generation, the four Pokemon that really have held up since they've started in Red and Blue and really become, like, these great Pokemon from the very start, and even now, today, because we still see those Pokemon. The first one was Gengar. I felt like he was a good start. He was that good Pokemon I could really talk about. We would all still remember like, oh, Gengar, yeah, it was crazy back then, and then look, he got, you know, his Mega Stone ban now. So we looked at that. Second was Starmie, which probably like the weaker one of all of the gods. Like I said, it's like it wasn't like the best. It was probably like four on the list, and not really my personal favorite, but it was still really good. You could substitute like an Alakazam in there other than Starmie, but I felt Starmie really well rounded. And I guess we'll go with like I guess probably my second favorite Pokemon on this list. My favorite will be the next part, and you guys probably should have had a feeling I had to throw in a legendary at some point. And now if I mention legendary, what's like one of the best legendaries you guys can even think of from Red and Blue that was like usable, obviously, unlike Mewtwo? I would have to mention Zapdos, one of the three legendary birds. We never really, saw much of anything from Moltres or Raccoon, but Zapdos has really always shown to be one of the best. One of the most used Pokemon. Probably, I would have to really like debate or really look up out of all of like different times of like usage stats and like OU. Zapdos might be one of the most used since it's been used since like ever since like the game started. He was like one of the most used Pokemon alongside Gengar and others. But probably the best reason why people use him is its amazing typing and its amazing stats. At first, it had two weaknesses. That was great. It had immunity, better. It had still five resistances. Like, okay, well, I mean, the weaknesses, it was only, yeah, weak to two things, which was ice and rock. Oh, nothing. And still had five resistances, which was pretty good at the time, too. So that was really nothing to, like, laugh at. And it really checked a lot of Pokemon, and it could counter some, as later on, as I'll talk about. And the best base stats, like, probably, like, even now, I could really, like, man, what has more well-rounded base stat totals other than him? I know he's a legendary. He's got those legendary stats, but man, everything's put in the right place. It's got 125 special attack, which is still awesome. And then when the Gen 2 decrease comes in, it only still goes down to 90 from 125 to 90 in like gold silver. That's still pretty good actually. Has okay attack. I mean, yeah, it did have to run Drill Peck back in Gen 1. That was his only other flying stab move. He had Thunderbolt and Drill Peck as his only offensive moves. So you had to have some, I guess, good attack in there, which was still good and had good speed. And his defenses were incredible. Like we look, Gen 1, 90, 85 attack actually, 90 attack, and then 90 special defense. So can't get much better than that if you really want anything more well-rounded. You can go any direction you want. It'll still work. Its only problem since its beginning as a Pokemon was its move pool. It really, nothing comes off as great in offensive power. Like I said, two stab moves, that's it. Just Drill Peck, Thunderbolt. It kind of didn't have many problems. Like, its only counters were like Golems, Rhydons, um, Jinx, I guess, not really. Like, you really wouldn't see. I guess maybe a Starmie too, but Zapdos can easily take down a Starmie if he really wanted to. So it didn't really mean much. We moved to Gen 2. I already mentioned his defense going, or special defense going to 90, which is pretty good actually. If you look at the other Pokemon, on Gengar, he lost a ton of special defense from his special. It was all special back in Gen 1, but he lost a ton of special defense. So did Starmie, and like everybody, but except Zapdos, which had to still keep that legendary, moxie and mentality. Be like, okay, I'm a legendary. I still gotta have good base stats. So they didn't really tone it down when we go into Gold and Silver, which is kind of like a bad thing because made to where like Zapdos still gonna be really used, and we know like Blissey's still gave a lot of Pokemon problems back then, And Steelix is still not even like could take down Zapdos. Like Steelix could do something to Steelix at least, not until later where Steelix all out counters um, Steel types, which is crazy. Um, in Gen 3, really, just better moves come into play. Like it does get substitute baton pass, which kind of gave him more an outlet to be like a really good like niche kind of defensive. Like it's still outspeed. Like turn one, you could like substitute if they really want to bring in their like Pokemon that's meant to take down Zapdos, because there were such things as Zapdos counters because you always see it, and then you could agility. Definitely baton pass that agility into something else, so that was good. It was like a staple back then. It was just, to just have rather than Raikou or Suicune, people would just stick with Zapdos, even though you could actually rest sleep talk back then. That was actually common, which is kind of weird for me to figure out. When I really thought about it, I was like, wow, I guess people really could try that. It's like if you really get down low and then just sleep talk that Thunderbolt, whatever, it could really work because it still had really good base special attack. If you really wanted to go for something like that. And then hidden power moves, that was common. You really wanted to see hidden power ice or grass. That was like it, because grass or ice really stopped it. It's only other counters, so had to go for those. And hidden powers helped all Pokemon across the whole board, especially the main Pokemon like Gengar. It helped out him and Starmie. So that was good. Kind of, I guess, if we stay in Gen 4, I know I'm kind of moving this kind of quick because it's like feels like we've already said a lot about Zapdos, and he's still getting played a lot today. I actually just played one earlier, which is funny for me thinking. But we kind of go in Gen 4. It comes more support oriented. It can like Thunder Wave, it can reflect, Light Screen, whatever you wanted. It can kind of have that. You could Toxic, which was great. And back then when it got pressure, that was actually one of the best stalling abilities, because when you could actually stall out their like PP moves, that was like any low PP moves, that was really good. And it can still hide behind the substitute. It actually got Roost, which made it incredible because now it has recovery on top of like the leftovers you were supposed to give it. Then you can Roost all of that, and then with the Roost, it took away the flying typing, so we just have a solid electric type. That's still great. So we're actually doing really good in terms of like in Gen 4 really comes out. A lot of Pokemon, as I said before, really come out in this 4th generation, getting access to items. He just comes out because he actually gets a more defined move pool on like not just offense, but that support defense style. And and people really ran it like that. You could still run the substitute baton pass agility. Everyone still did that. It actually it gets U-turn, but later we don't mention U-turn because it gets Volt Switch later on, so that gets brushed under. And if we look now into Platinum, this is where like okay, Zapdos turns into a god. I mentioned Gengar turns into a god with like a god because like it got like Choice Specs and like Choice Scarf, which was great. Now Zapdos becomes a god because it can also get Choice Specs and it also got Heat Wave. What do you remember in Platinum everybody's using? We remember Caesar, and I'm going to keep mentioning Caesar throughout this whole list, and probably for a few more of these Pokemon tier episodes. I might even do a whole, like, Caesar episode. I'm thinking about it. But man, like, Zapdos getting Heat Wave along with, like, a Specs or, like, a Scarf, that was deadly. That was just ridiculous. It could stop, like I said, Steelix's. It could stop the Caesars, Metagrosses, Lucarios, you name it. A lot of the main Steel types, they just see Zapdos and they really run away. They're like, wow, it's over. You think you'd have it in the bag. It's like, oh yeah, I got my Caesar, man. I got like a Metagross, and Metagross actually got a lot of play back then too. But when you say Zapdos, it doesn't just got Thunderbolt anymore. It's got that Heat Wave. In VGC that was the best because it was obvious. It was a spread move. So yeah, it was gonna hit both. People were, I guess, when they realized it could run Heat Wave, you could go Hidden Power Fire back then, but no, you really need that Heat Wave. Yeah, it was a kind of a low accuracy, I guess, but that, I mean, still, like I said, you give that thing a Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, Heat Wave, you'll just wreck any kind of Steel type you'll see in doubles or anything, even singles, OU, which is crazy to think about, or if you just want to go safe, just give it that leftovers. You can still run Heat Wave Thunderbolt. I guess you turn it like Toxic if you really just want it to be even. For Gen 5, really, it still kind of stayed like that because we had Ferrothorn in Gen 5, and like we all know how Ferrothorn is and how Zapdos can still deal with it to this day. And it got Volt Switch, so it got another stab move, and you could really work with the Volt Switch as like if you want to really work like a switching kind of team. And Thunderbolt just checked a lot of the water types and countered them. Um, Not really a lot to say because Gen 5, it also made a lot of VGC appearances. Like I said, we saw Metagross a lot. Also in like early VGCs, I remember seeing a Metagross on one of the championship teams. I also remember seeing a Cresselia Heatran, and I also remember seeing a Zapdos. And I remember probably that Zapdos mainly for that Metagross you would always see. And maybe some people even ran Caesar, because still Caesar was a good Pokemon. But you'd always see Zapdos. Um, Caesar was number one, maybe, I guess for some time, Zapdos is always at number two or three. Um, so yeah, we could really see. I guess it kind of got a bit outdated once we get to Gen 6, as people all the Mega Evolution hype, and you got to run a legend or a Mega Evolution instead of a Legendary, because back then it's like you didn't have Megas, you really needed like a Legendary staple. It's like if you're gonna run a team, at least have a Legendary. Um, so you'd run like I guess Zapdos, you could run Suicune, yeah, or Latios, that was good too. But man, Zapdos has always been one of those best legendaries you could always use. Even when Thundurus comes into the scene, yeah, Thundurus is good, but it didn't have the defensive bulk, or it didn't have what it really needed would be like a Heat Wave. Yeah, Thundurus could get Focus Blast, but that's like whatever. That's an even higher chance to miss. So I don't even think about it. And Prankster, that's a whole different kind of set of like strategy you want to throw in for that. So yeah, I mean, just what else are you gonna say about Zapdos? It really is that Pokemon you could just whatever you want out of it, it's gonna give it to you. It's still to this day had the best stats, one of the best dual typings in the whole game. It's still hard to take down. It's got as time went on, its move pool did get better, so we can see the move pool just really start from like bad to like amazing. I'm trying to keep my hands in the thing here, so we can really see it really got better over time. A lot of Pokemon did, but he was one of the best ones to come out of there. So I just probably one of the best Pokemon, definitely a god from the very first start of the game, and we'll keep seeing this thing for many, many years to come.